He moved to a quiet town to escape the past. But when the men who killed his father came knocking, Miles had to do the one thing his mother feared most: fight back. The afternoon sun stretched lazily across the treetops, lining the quiet road as the old SUV turned into the peaceful neighborhood of Silver Creek, a small town in northern Oregon. Inside the car, 17-year-old Miles Carter sat silently, gazing out the window, his eyes somber as if counting every identical house with perfectly trimmed lawns. Beside him, his mother, Danielle Carter, kept a firm grip on the steering wheel, forcing a smile that both of them knew was anything but genuine. "We're starting fresh here, Miles." "It's peaceful, no one knows anything," she said, her voice fading like she was trying to reassure herself more than him. Miles didn't respond. He had heard those words too many times. Every time they moved, every time he switched schools, his mother said the same thing. But the truth was, they were never really safe. They weren't running from money problems or broken hearts, but from blood-stained memories of one man. His father, Isaiah Carter, a gifted fighter who once dominated underground matches, until he was brutally murdered in a so-called accident that no one ever bothered to fully investigate. Before he died, Isaiah passed on to Miles the most important thing: not fame, not fortune, but sharp combat skills and a chilling warning from his mother: never let anyone know what you're capable of. When they pulled up to their new home, a small rental with brown roof shingles and a modest front porch, Danielle exhaled, as if she had just completed a lifetime's journey. Miles stepped out, his eyes scanning the surroundings. A few curtains shifted, nosy neighbors watching through the cracks. Silver Creek High, the new school, was less than 2 miles away. A large, old red brick building surrounded by a tall iron fence and towering maple trees. Tomorrow, Miles would begin there. A school he had never set foot in, but already understood. Where there's power, there's oppression. His mother turned to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Just stay quiet, keep your head down, and everything will be fine." Miles nodded, but deep down he knew better. Where there's darkness, there must be light. And sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's mercy waiting for the right moment to speak. For the entire first week at Silver Creek High, Miles Carter moved like a shadow. He kept to the back row in every class, avoided eye contact, and ate lunch alone in the quiet hallway next to the sports equipment room. But darkness was never a place to hide forever. His name was Trevor Langston, captain of the football team, son of the town's councilman. The kind of guy everyone pretended to like, but no one dared to cross. He noticed Miles on the first day, and after just 2 sentences, had already marked him as a new target. "The strap on your backpack looks like something from a summer charity camp," Trevor said loudly in the middle of the hallway, triggering laughter from the group of varsity-jacketed boys behind him. Miles didn't respond. He just gave a slight nod, as if the comment wasn't even worth registering. But Trevor hated being ignored. On the third day, as Miles was opening his locker, Trevor slammed the metal door shut with a loud clang. "You think you're cool because you don't talk?" he growled. Miles looked at him, his eyes calm. "I'm just trying to go to class." "Yeah." Trevor smirked. "Then let me welcome you properly." That evening, after gym class, Miles was cornered behind the sports equipment shed. 5 guys formed a circle around him. The flickering neon light above made everything look like a grainy scene from an old film. Trevor struck first. A straight punch aimed at Miles's face, but it missed. Miles tilted his head to the right, light as air. The second guy lunged, trying to grab him. But somehow, Miles pivoted, stepped back, and the attacker crashed right into Trevor. No punches, no grunts, just smooth, deliberate movements, like he was dancing, not defending himself. "Whoa!" Someone outside the circle gasped, phone raised, recording the whole thing. Miles left the shed before things escalated. But the next morning, he noticed it. People's eyes were different. A 28-second video had exploded across student group chats and social media. New kid dodges like a ninja. He hadn't wanted attention. He just wanted peace. But now, everything had spiraled out of control. 2 days after the ninja dodge video swept through Silver Creek High, Miles Carter was still trying to keep the lowest profile possible. But in a small town like Silver Creek, where rumors spread faster than wildfire, that was nearly impossible. During lunch, a kid named Cody, small, glasses, clearly an action movie nerd, timidly slid into the seat next to him. "Hey," Cody whispered, "where'd you learn to move like that? That stuff looks straight out of the raid." Miles shrugged. "Just reflexes." Cody looked at him, eyes gleaming as if he'd just seen a superhero slip up and reveal his identity. That evening, Miles dug to the boxes his mother had carefully stored away in the garage. In a small wooden chest, he found something he had never been allowed to open before, an old, wrinkled photograph of his father. Inside a fight ring, shirt soaked in sweat, arms raised in victory. On the back of the photo, scrawled in rough handwriting, were the words, "If you found this, go to 1217 Ironwood Avenue and be careful." Miles felt his heartbeat stutter. He looked up and saw his mother standing in the garage doorway, her hands clenched. "You weren't supposed to see that." "What is this, Mom?" Dad was a professional fighter, wasn't he? Danielle, his mother, stood silent for a long moment before speaking. "Your father, he didn't die in an accident, like I told you. He was murdered, Miles, by the same people he used to fight for. When he tried to walk away, they didn't let him." Miles felt frozen in place. "There's a man named Vincent Kane. He runs an underground fighting network, rich, powerful, and absolutely ruthless. And the other one," she bit her lip, voice cracking, "is Richard Langston, Trevor's father." Miles stepped back, stunned. "Miles, you have to promise me. Don't show your skills again. Those people, they'll find out who you are, and they will come." That night in his room, Miles sat by the half-open window, staring out at the quiet street. A black SUV crept slowly past their house. The driver was a middle-aged man, eyes like sharpened glass. The car didn't stop, but Miles felt it deep in his bones. They knew. The question was no longer, should I hide? It was, what will I do when they come? Just 3 days after discovering the photo and confronting the truth from his mother, Miles's already tense world completely fell apart. On Tuesday morning, just as he stepped into geometry class, his name rang out over the school PA system. "Miles Carter, report to the principal's office immediately." In the cold, sterile room, Principal Bennett, a stern woman with silver hair pulled into a tight bun, slid a test paper across the desk. "You scored a perfect score on this exam," she said, not in praise, but as if leveling an accusation. "The problem is, your answers are identical, down to every punctuation mark, to those of Kaylin Gwynn, our top junior student." Miles frowned. "I've never even spoken to her. We'll investigate further, but in the meantime, you're suspended for 1 week for academic dishonesty." The news spread like wildfire. Within an hour, the whole school had labeled him a fraud. Trevor Langston, now the unofficial leader of the student body, just sneered as Miles walked down the hallway. "Good at dodging punches. Not so good at hiding your test answers, huh, Carter?" he mocked. And that was just the beginning. That evening, when Miles and his mother returned from the grocery store, they found the front door wide open. The sofa was slashed, the refrigerator knocked over, family pictures shattered across the floor. On the living room wall, in bright red painted the color of blood, were 2 crudely scrawled words. "Fight back." Danielle trembled as she called the police. But when they arrived, all they said was, "Could have been a random act." The next day, Danielle was fired from her job as an accountant at the local bank. Budget restructuring, they claimed, but no one could hide the pity in their eyes or the whispers behind her back. That evening, a sleek black car pulled up in front of their house. A man stepped out, dressed in a charcoal suit tailored to perfection. He knocked on the door as if he'd visited the house 100 times before. "Miles Carter." His voice was smooth, like velvet. "I'm Vincent Kane. I believe it's time we had a conversation." Miles stepped in front of his mother. "I've got nothing to say to you." Kane smiled. "No? I think you'll want to hear how to keep your mother from losing everything." He handed Miles a black card. On the back, a single line was printed. "Friday night, 11 p.m., Redstone Warehouse. 1 fight, 1 debt. Don't worry," Kane said as he turned to leave. Your opponent is Lorenzo Taylor, pro fighter. Bigger, stronger, more dangerous than you. But if you win, everything gets erased. Simple. Danielle screamed as Kane's car pulled away. Miles, you can't do this. That's how they killed your father. Miles gripped the card tightly in his hand. The night was freezing, but his whole body burned like glowing embers. His eyes fixed on the distance, where the redstone warehouse lay hidden behind old oak trees. I don't have a choice anymore, he whispered. But this time I won't lose. On Friday night, Redstone Warehouse blazed with the harsh glow of halogen lights mounted high on the metal ceiling. Below, a steel cage stood at the center of the dusty space, echoing with cheers from nearly 100 spectators in tailored suits, champagne glasses in hand, their eyes gleaming with bloodlust. This wasn't a fight. It was a savage spectacle for the elite. Miles stood in one corner of the cage, his heartbeat steady like a war drum. Across from him was Lorenzo Taylor, a towering man over 6 feet tall, muscles bulging, scars snaking down his jaw and shoulder. Lorenzo rolled his neck, the cracking sound loud and deliberate. New kid, huh? He rasped. You won't make it to round 2. The bell rang. Lorenzo charged like a runaway truck. Miles dodged the first punch, then the second, gliding like water around the steel fence. He didn't throw a single strike, just ducked, observed, waited. But no one came here to watch a dance. Fight him, someone screamed from the crowd. In the 3rd minute, Lorenzo swept Miles' legs out. Miles hit the floor hard. The cage shook. Lorenzo raised his fist to finish it. But in that flash of a second, Miles twisted, hooking Lorenzo's leg from below. Lorenzo stumbled, crashed down. A sliver of an opening. Miles struck. An elbow to the chin. A knee straight into the liver. And finally, a brutal hook across the jaw. Lorenzo collapsed unconscious. The air fell silent, then exploded into chaos. Vincent Kane stepped into the cage, clapping slowly. I didn't think you'd pull it off, he said. But I have to admit, you really are your father's son. Miles, breath ragged, turned to leave. But 2 hulking men blocked his way. We had a deal, Kane said, that icy smile returning. You're not done. You'll keep fighting. Or your mother has an accident. Miles was dragged into a windowless room behind the warehouse. His phone confiscated. The door locked. He lost track of time. A day, 2, then the door creaked open, and the person standing there made Miles question reality. We don't have much time, the figure said in a whisper. Come with me. It was Coach Darren Darius, the physical education instructor from Silver Creek High, the one who'd first recognized Miles' evasive technique back in the gym. Following him were Brooke and Gwynn and Eli Sanders, Miles' only true ally since the beginning. We've got a plan, Coach Darius said as they slipped out the back of the warehouse. But this time, Miles, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're going to bring the whole system down. Miles nodded, eyes blazing. Then let's begin. The spotlight from the grandstand poured onto the steel cage like a Broadway stage. But tonight, there was no performance, only truth and blood. Miles Carter stood at the center of the largest underground fight arena in the state of Oregon, built inside a derelict theater on the outskirts of Portland. Surrounding him were hundreds of spectators in tuxedos, seated in velvet-lined chairs, waiting for the greatest showdown that Vincent Kane had marketed to the elite. The battle of the century, Miles Carter versus Trevor Langston. On one side, Miles, the boy carrying the martial legacy of a murdered father. On the other, Trevor, trained like a predator by his own father. Richard Langston, a shadowy magnate funding the entire illegal fight circuit. But tonight, Miles wasn't here to win. He was here to end everything. From a van 2 blocks away, Coach Darius whispered through the earpiece. Cameras are rolling. Brooke had hacked into the sound system. All we need is for Kane and Langston to talk. The bell rang. Trevor charged like a storm. A low kick, a sharp left jab, a thunderous straight punch. Every strike carefully rehearsed, designed to exploit Miles' known defensive habits. But Miles stepped back, dodged, stood his ground. He didn't fight like before. He shifted into the stance called Tiger's Fall, a style his father had created and never revealed to anyone else. The entire arena held its breath. Miles' counterattack came as light as wind, but struck like thunder. A swift hip rotation sliced across Trevor's midsection. A low sweep took his legs out from under him. Then, a knee, straight to the sternum, sent Trevor reeling, breathless and stunned. Trevor scrambled back to his feet, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. He screamed, voice hoarse with rage. "You don't belong here. You don't know who these people are." Miles seized the moment. He turned to the crowd and shouted, "I know exactly who they are. My father was killed by you for refusing to fight for this filthy system." Vincent Kane shot up from his seat. "Shut him up," he barked, panic cracking his usually smooth tone. Richard Langston frowned, yanked the earpiece from his security guard. "That foolish boy is digging his own grave." In Miles' ear, Coach Darius yelled, "That's enough. We've got everything. Police are inbound." Trevor launched one last attack, desperate, furious. Miles pivoted, dodged, and unleashed a spinning kick to the temple. Trevor collapsed, unconscious. At that exact moment, the main doors burst open. Flashlights beamed through the smoke. FBI agents stormed the arena. Vincent Kane was pinned to the floor. Richard Langston was cuffed in front of hundreds of stunned spectators. Miles dropped to his knees, gasping for air. The entire arena fell into absolute silence. Tonight wasn't just a win inside a cage. It was a fall of an empire. 2 weeks after the battle of the century, Miles Carter woke up in a hospital room in Portland. Soft morning light filtered through a window fogged with condensation. His body ached with bruises, but he knew he had survived. And more than that, he had changed everything. News of the underground fight ring takedown spread across the nation. Television anchors, online journalists, and podcast hosts all buzz about the silent fighter. Miles Carter, the 17-year-old high schooler who exposed a corrupt empire that had thrived for years in secrecy. Vincent Kane, the underground kingpin, was found dead by suicide in a jail cell just 3 days after the arrest. No note, no surveillance footage. The police offered no explanation, just silence. Richard Langston, Trevor's father, vanished. The FBI confirmed he boarded a private jet bound for Caribbean. No trace since. No one could say for certain if he'd ever return. But Miles knew one thing clearly. The fight wasn't over. 1 week after being discharged from the hospital, a man in a black suit arrived at Miles' doorstep. He introduced himself as Marcus Bell, a representative from Professional Martial Arts Federation based in California. "You have the potential to be a real champion," he said, laying an 80-page contract on the table. "Full training, media coverage, $1 million prize pools. It's all yours if you sign." Miles looked at his mother, then at Coach Darius, who nodded slowly, his brow creased with concern. "Thank you," Miles replied, gently pushing the contract back. "But I don't need a spotlight. I need a purpose." The following week, in a quiet ceremony in Portland's East Industrial District, Miles cut the ribbon to open the Legacy Center, a martial arts and life skills training facility for local youth. The building, once a rusted machine shop, had been transformed into a bright, clean training space. On the wall hung a photo of his father, Isaiah Carter, the fighter who died in the shadows to protect his family. "We're not here to teach how to fight," Miles said in his opening speech. "We teach how to defend, to endure, and to choose the right path, even when you have to walk it alone." Eli, sharp, loyal, and wise, stood beside him. Brooke was adjusting the camera equipment in the back. Coach Darius stood with his arms folded, watching the three of them, eyes glistening. It wasn't the glare of a stage spotlight, but it was the light of hope. On the giant screen inside the Portland University Auditorium, white letters appeared against a black background. "Warrior in the Shadows. The truth about America's underground fight rings." The hall fell silent. Brooke and Gwen sat in the front row, his hands clenched tightly together. He was only 17, but his very first documentary was now premiering at a youth social impact film festival. Scenes rolled across the screen. Miles' fight with Lorenzo, audio clips of Vincent Kane confessing his crimes, first-hand account from former fighters lured into the network, each frame drawing the room deeper into stunned silence. At the back of the auditorium, Miles sat beside Eli and his mother, Danielle Carter. She had healed in many ways since the night their home was shattered and the truth about her husband's death was finally brought to light. Her face, once etched with anxiety, now carried something different, pride. When the film ended, the audience rose to their feet in thunderous applause. Brooks stepped onto the stage to accept the award for Best Documentary, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the microphone. "This film isn't about martial arts," Brooks said. "It's about choice, between silence and action, between revenge and change." Miles chose a harder path, and because of that, dozens of kids were saved. The auditorium erupted again in applause. In the front row, Miles said nothing. He simply placed his hand gently on his mother Danielle's shoulder, because everything had begun with the fear she'd carried and hidden for nearly 2 decades. Eli Sanders, now a first-year law student at the University of Oregon, had become deeply involved in organizations advocating for exploited youth. During a panel talk with aspiring law students, she said, "I used to think justice was a tool for the powerful, but I've learned it can be a weapon for those who dare to wield the truth." Coach Darius had officially retired. He left Silver Creek High quietly. No farewell party, no speech. But every afternoon, he was at the Legacy Center, wearing old sweats, standing behind padded mats, showing the next generation how to throw their very first kicks. "These kids," he once told Miles, "they remind me of your father, and of you, too." One weekend afternoon, as everyone was cleaning up after class, Miles looked around the gym. The laughter, the clapping. The Legacy Center wasn't just a gym, it was a fortress. A place where kids who were once hunted now learned how to stand tall on their own 2 feet. And he knew the journey had only just begun. That night, after the final class had ended, Miles Carter stayed at the Legacy Center longer than usual. Outside, a light rain was falling. Streetlights shimmered on the wet concrete, casting long, wavy reflections. He was restocking the glove rack when he heard the front gate creak open with a soft clatter. A man stepped in middle-aged, wearing a dark trench coat, walking slowly, as if he had nothing to hide and no reason to fear. Raindrops still glistened on his shoulders. "The center's closed," Miles said, his voice calm, eyes never leaving the gloves he was stacking. "If you're here for a class, come back in the morning." The man stopped at the front desk, where the overhead light cast its brightest glow. "I'm not here to train," he said, voice smooth and even. "I'm here to warn you." Miles looked up. The man's face was forgettable, plain, unremarkable, but his eyes were something else entirely. Sharp as a scalpel, gleaming with cold, calculated knowledge. "You've stirred the surface," the man went on. "But the bottom of the lake is deeper than you think." Miles narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "Someone who once stood on the edge, just like your father. Carter wasn't killed because he betrayed Cain. He was killed because he knew too much." Silence settled between them, broken only by the steady fall of rain outside and the occasional gust of wind brushing against the metal roof. Vincent Cain was just a piece, a link in the chain. The man pulled out a white business card. No name, no title, just a single sequence of numbers embossed in silver. "If one day you really want to know about the ones above, call this number. But when you do, you'll no longer be an outsider." Miles took the card, his eyes locked on the stranger's. "And if I don't call, then they'll call you." The man turned and walked out, the heavy steel door clicking shut behind him like a vault sealing darkness away. A chill ran down Miles's spine. He stared at the card, solid, cold, its weight far heavier than its size. He slid it into his pocket, locked up the center, and stepped outside. On his way home, he noticed a black car parked beneath the street lamp. Its engine purred softly, but no one sat behind the wheel. A moment later, it rolled forward slowly, moving in sync with his path. Miles didn't panic. He pulled up his hoodie, tucked his hands in his coat pockets, and in his mind he heard a voice, his father's voice, echoing from the past. True power doesn't live in the first punch. It lives in knowing when to strike and when to wait. He didn't look back. His silhouette merged with the falling rain, quietly disappearing around the last bend of the street.